Zathari Dominion had ruled parts of the galaxy for more than 10,000 years. They were proud, rich in knowledge, and powerful in war. Most species respected them. Some feared them. When humans entered the galactic stage, the Zathari were curious but also a little amused. Earth was young, their fleet was small, their technology was simple by galactic standards. So the Zathari High Council sent a formal message to Earth's space government. It was short and polite but clear. We would like to visit your fleet. We wish to understand your capabilities. As new members of the galactic community, it is wise to build trust. The humans replied after 2 days. Their answer was strange. You are welcome to visit our fleet, they said, but be prepared. What you see may not be what you expect. That line confused the Zathari Council. What could humans possibly show that they hadn't already seen from 1,000 other young species? Still, they accepted the invitation. A Zathari diplomatic ship was sent to a location marked on the star map as Sector 7 Black. The name didn't appear in any public records. That was unusual. Still they went. 6 Zathari officers, 2 scientists, and 1 ambassador made the journey. As their sleek silver ship entered the area, they passed through an energy field unlike any they had seen. Their instruments glitched. The stars on their map blinked out for a moment. For a few seconds, they couldn't tell if they were still in real space. Then something appeared. A massive structure floated in the dark. It looked like a space station, but also like a fortress. Black metal, no lights, no visible movement. Behind it, dozens, no hundreds of ships drifted slowly like ghosts. The Zathari crew looked at each other. Where is the human fleet? Asked one officer. That is the fleet, the pilot said, staring at the screen. A human voice came through the speaker, calm, cold. Zathari delegation, welcome. To Grave Sector 7, prepare for docking. The Zathari ship followed a docking path and landed inside a hangar. The hangar was huge, big enough to hold a small city. The floor was made of metal that pulsed slightly underfoot like a heartbeat. Strange symbols were etched into the walls. The Zathari had never seen writing like it before. A group of human officers waited for them. They wore black uniforms with no ranks or names. Their eyes looked tired but sharp. The Zathari ambassador stepped forward. Thank you for allowing us to visit, he said politely. We are eager to see your fleet and understand your role in galactic peace. The human commander nodded. You will see the fleet, he said, but understand, these ships are not built. They are found. The Zathari looked at each other again. Found? What did that mean? They followed the humans into a tunnel that led deeper into the station. As they walked, they passed windows that showed parts of the fleet outside. The ships were like nothing the Zathari had ever seen. Some were smooth and silver, shaped like long blades. Others were rough, jagged, dark, and almost looked like stone. All of them looked ancient, older than anything known in the galaxy. Some were the size of cities. One was as large as a small moon. The Zathari scientists were whispering to each other. These can't be human-built. They're too advanced and too old. How old are these ships? One scientist asked the human guide. The human stopped walking. These ships are older than your empire, he said. Older than your species. The Zathari fell silent. This is impossible, the ambassador said. We have records going back 10,000 years. We've studied all known galactic tech. These ships look like they come from a time before time. The human commander said nothing. He turned and walked forward. The group followed. They entered a control room where a single screen showed a star map. Red dots were marked across the galaxy. One of the dots blinked. What are these dots? The ambassador asked. Waking points, the human said quietly. Places where others may still sleep. Others? The human commander looked at him. For the first time his voice softened, but his words chilled the air. These ships are not just metal and wires. They are something more. They remember things. They dream. And sometimes, they wake up angry. The Zathari said nothing. Behind them, through the large window, one of the ancient ships slowly turned its massive hull. Its engines lit up for just a second, bright blue fire that looked more alive than mechanical. One of the Zathari scientists took a step back. "I don't think we should be here," he whispered. The human officer nodded. "Now you understand. We didn't bring you here to impress you. We brought you here to warn you." The ambassador narrowed his eyes. "Warn us about what?" The human looked back at the blinking red dots on the map. "About what's coming." The room fell into silence. Somewhere in the dark beyond the station, something shifted. Something old. Something watching. The stars outside flickered just a little, and for a second, everyone in the room felt the same thing, the feeling that they were not alone. The Zathari delegation stayed silent as they walked deeper into the human space station. No one spoke much after the strange warning. The human officer leading them had a serious face like someone who had seen terrible things. The station around them was cold and dark, but not broken. It felt alive in a strange way, like it was watching them. They entered a second hangar. This one was even larger than the first. The ceiling was so high they could barely see it. There were 5 massive ships inside, each completely different from the other. One ship looked like a giant wing, smooth and silver, glowing faintly. Another looked like it was made of stone, its surface cracked and covered in moss-like green metal. A third looked like a skeleton of some huge beast, long, sharp, and hollow. The fourth pulsed with a soft blue light, and the last one was black and had no clear shape, as if it kept changing when you weren't looking. "These are some of the old giants," the human commander said quietly. "We found them drifting at the edge of the galaxy." The Zathari scientist stepped forward, staring at the silver ship. "This material, it's not known to us. It doesn't reflect energy properly. And there are no heat signatures." Another Zathari leaned closer to the dark ship. "It's like it's invisible to scanners. My device is showing nothing, even though I'm looking at it with my eyes." The human nodded. "These ships are not made with normal technology. We do not fully understand them. We only know how to keep them asleep." "Why would you need to keep a ship asleep?" the ambassador asked. The human's voice dropped. "Because if they wake up, things happen." They approached one of the ships. A narrow bridge led from the hangar into the side of the silver-winged vessel. As they stepped inside, the air changed. It was warm even though there were no heaters. The walls were smooth with no wires, no lights, no buttons. "There are no controls," one Zathari noticed. "There are no engines either," another said. The human officer looked around the strange room. "They respond to thought," he said. "Somehow, but not just anyone's thoughts." "Yours?" asked the ambassador. The human shook his head. "No. We have specialists. Some people can connect. Most cannot. We don't force it anymore." A low hum suddenly passed through the floor. The walls pulsed once, like a heartbeat. The Zathari froze. One scientist reached out and touched the wall. "Don't," the human snapped. But it was too late. The wall lit up under the Zathari's hand. Strange symbols appeared, spirals, lines, shifting images like stars being born and dying. The scientist pulled his hand back quickly, breathing hard. Something touched my mind." The human walked over and guided him away. "You're lucky. Some people don't come back after touching it." "What do you mean?" asked the ambassador. "They lose their minds," the human said simply. "Or they start speaking in languages. We don't know. One man began screaming the same word over and over. We looked it up later. It was a dead word from a species that went extinct 1,000,000 years ago." The Zathari began to understand that this was not a show of strength. It was a quiet warning. A silent scream in the dark. Humans were not showing off their fleet. They were warning the galaxy that they had touched something old and dangerous. Back outside the ship, the group stood in front of a display screen. It showed each of the 5 ships in the hangar, slowly rotating in space. "These are not human ships," the ambassador said. "No," the human agreed. "They are something else. We found them, yes, but they do not belong to us. We are just the ones unlucky enough to have woken them up." Another Zathari scientist was staring at the bone-like ship. "Commander," he said, his voice shaking, "I believe that ship is looking at me." The others turned to look. There were no windows, no eyes, but somehow they felt it too. Like the ship itself was aware. The human officer didn't respond. He simply said, "Let's go." As they left the hangar, one of the ancient ships made a sound. It was not a machine sound. It was more like a breath or a whisper, too quiet to understand, but enough to make every Zathari feel cold. In the hallway, as they returned to their guest quarters, the Zathari ambassador whispered to the human, "These ships, they are not just tools. They are something more." The human didn't stop walking. He only said one thing before the door closed behind him. "Yes, and they remember things we wish they didn't." Silence returned. But deep in the hangar, one of the ships blinked with a faint red light. It had heard them, and it had begun to wake. The Zathari delegation couldn't sleep that night. Even though the human quarters were clean, warm, and quiet, there was something in the air, something strange. A kind of pressure, like the feeling before a storm. Their minds kept returning to the ships, the way they looked, the way they felt, and most of all, the way one of them had watched them. Scientist Relic sat on the edge of his bed holding a small scanner. He had secretly recorded energy readings from the bone-like ship earlier that day, but the data made no sense. There were no clear patterns. The ship had no power source, no circuits, no artificial gravity, and yet it had moved. He zoomed in on the sensor logs and saw something he had missed. A pulse, a very short one, a soft wave that passed through the station at the moment he touched the ship's wall. It wasn't just energy, it was structured, like a message. He ran to wake his fellow scientist, Kelna. "Look," he whispered, showing the screen. "It's a signal, and it wasn't random." Kelna rubbed her eyes and stared at the data. Her face slowly grew serious. "This is a pattern," she said. "I think it's language." They didn't wait. They contacted the human commander and asked for access to the ship again. The humans agreed, but with a warning. "You have 1 hour. Stay with the guide, and do not touch the walls." This time, the humans brought a man with them, a young human wearing a gray uniform with no name. He looked calm, almost too calm. The commander introduced him only as the Attuned. The group entered the silver-winged ship again. It was quiet inside, almost peaceful. The Attuned man walked ahead, then stopped and placed his hand on a flat part of the wall. The wall lit up. Symbols moved slowly across its surface like water. "What's he doing?" Relic whispered. "He's not controlling it," the commander said. "He's listening." The Attuned man spoke softly, but not in any known language. The words were strange, deep, and echoing. Then suddenly, the room shifted, the walls changed, the smooth metal bent and melted into a new shape. The floor opened and formed a viewing window. Below them was not the hangar, but space itself. And in that space floated millions of ships. But they weren't real. They were shadows, memories, echoes of a time long gone. The Zathari gasped. The ships were fighting a war, one like nothing they had seen. Giant machines, living weapons, stars exploding. It was chaos. And in the middle of it all, the same ships the humans now used. One shadow ship exploded, and a wave of strange light passed through everything. "What is this?" Kelna whispered. "A memory," the commander said. "From the ship's mind." The view changed again. Now they saw a planet, burning. Black clouds were falling from the sky, moving like beasts. Eating light, swallowing cities. No defense worked against them. Nothing stopped them. The Zathari turned pale. "What are those things?" The human commander's voice dropped low. "We call them shadows, the ones who fought the Forerunners. The ships you see are the last of their kind. Relic stepped closer to the viewing window. So, humans didn't build these ships. You found them after this war? The human nodded. Near the edge of the galaxy, most were silent. Broken, but some still responded, some still dreamed. Why use them? Kelna asked. Why risk it? The human looked at the memory window, still showing the war. Because when we found them, the shadows were waking again. The window shut down. The walls returned to normal. Everyone stood in silence. Then Relic spoke. I need more time to study this. Impossible, the human commander said. You've seen too much already. But there's a message in the ship, Relic said. We saw it, we felt it, it's still trying to talk. The attuned man turned his head slightly and spoke for the first time. It already has. Everyone stared at him. What do you mean? Relic asked. The man looked around, then at the ship's glowing walls. It knows you're here. It showed you that memory on purpose. The human commander stepped forward. It wants you to know what's coming. The lights in the room flickered. The ship let out a sound, a deep, low tone like a heartbeat. The attuned man placed his hand on the wall again. He closed his eyes and listened. Then his face changed. He opened his eyes, now wide with fear. They've seen us, he whispered. Who? The commander asked. The man pointed to the sky. The shadows. The ship spoke again. The memory wasn't a warning, it was a signal. Relic stepped back. You mean, we activated something? The ship trembled slightly beneath their feet. A distant alarm began to beep. The human officer tapped his earpiece. A voice came through. Unidentified movement outside the sector. Something's coming out of hyperspace. The commander looked at the Zathari. You need to leave, now. The floor under them shook again, stronger this time. The ship wasn't just waking up. Something else was too. Something far, far worse. The alarm kept ringing across the human station. Red lights flashed in the hallways. Soldiers in black uniforms ran to their posts. Doors closed behind them with heavy clanks. The Zathari delegation stood frozen as chaos unfolded around them. The human commander led them quickly through the hallway. We need to get you back to your ship, he said, voice firm. Now. Relic, the Zathari scientist, glanced behind him. Is it the shadows? We don't know yet, the commander answered. But something's entered the edge of Grave Sector. Nothing friendly comes here. They passed a large glass wall that looked out into space. What the Zathari saw made their blood run cold. Far beyond the station, in the blackness of space, a rip had opened. Not a normal wormhole, not even close. It was jagged like torn skin, and from inside it something was crawling through. It didn't have a clear shape. Long tendrils floated out of it like smoke. A black mist spread in all directions. And at the center, glowing eyes, red, thousands of them, watched everything. One of the Zathari gasped. That's not a ship. No, the human said quietly. It's one of them. Kelna felt her knees weaken. How did it find this place? The human didn't answer. The floor rumbled again, deeper now. The human commander tapped his wrist device. Activate the silent ones. A voice responded. Are you sure, sir? They're not fully stable. We don't have time. Relic turned to him. What are the silent ones? The commander looked at him darkly. The ships you saw earlier, the sleeping ones. They've been waiting for this. The delegation was rushed through corridors, now flashing with orange lights. Somewhere behind them, a long mechanical sound echoed, like massive engines waking up after centuries of sleep. Suddenly, the walls shook violently. A booming roar came from above, like thunder in space. A massive ship had activated. The Zathari ran to a wide observation deck with the humans. Through the clear windows, they saw the black, shapeless creature from the rip stretch out its tendrils toward the station. But then, something huge blocked it. One of the ancient ships, the bone-like one, moved into position. Its body cracked, open like a shell, and a sphere of white light burst from its center. The mist creature shrieked. The sound wasn't physical, but everyone heard it in their minds. The Zathari fell to their knees, holding their heads. Images flooded their thoughts. Planets falling, stars dying, people screaming in forgotten languages. Then it stopped. The old ship's light faded. The creature pulled back slightly, but it was not destroyed. "It's testing us," said the attuned human. He had returned, face pale, eyes unfocused. "It's not alone." The human commander's face turned hard. "Then we wake them all." In the distance, more of the ancient ship started to glow. The black one with the shifting shape shimmered like it was becoming real for the first time. The silver-winged ship lifted out of the hangar by itself, floating on invisible power. One by one, the silent ones woke up. The Zathari ambassador stepped forward slowly. "We had no idea that something like this existed." The human commander finally turned to him. His voice was low, sharp. "That's why we called you here. You wanted us to help?" "No," the commander said. "We wanted you to believe us because soon this won't be just our problem." The red eyes beyond the rip glowed brighter. Then more eyes appeared, hundreds more. "Multiple entities exiting the rift," someone shouted. The shadows had come. One of the ancient ships, the stone-covered one, launched forward. It moved slowly but with weight and purpose. As it crossed space, its hull opened, revealing a giant spiral-shaped cannon. It fired. There was no beam, no explosion. Just silence. And then, a shadow vanished. Not destroyed, just gone. Erased. Like it was never there. The others screamed in answer. Relic stared in awe. "These ships, they don't just fight, they unmake." The human nodded grimly. "They're not our weapons. They're something older, something made to fight the end of all things." "But why bring us here?" the Zathari ambassador asked. "Again." "Because this time," the human said, "we don't think we can hold the line alone." The station shook again. Out in space, the silent ones and the shadows moved toward each other like ancient enemies meeting again after lifetimes of silence. War had returned to the stars, and it was only beginning. The silent ones moved through space like gods waking from sleep. They didn't fly the way normal ships did. They drifted with purpose, as if space itself made way for them. Each of them was strange, massive, and alive in ways the Zathari couldn't understand. The Zathari delegation stood on the station's main observation deck watching history unfold. Thousands of kilometers away, the shadows spread across the stars like a disease. Their forms shifted, black mist, sharp limbs, glowing red eyes. They didn't send messages. They didn't ask for surrender. They came to consume. The human commander stood beside the ambassador. His face was calm, but his voice was cold. "We have no plan to win, only to survive long enough." The ambassador looked confused. "You have these ships, these powerful, silent ones. Isn't that enough?" The commander shook his head. "You still don't understand. These ships were made to stop the shadows long ago, but even they failed." Relic stared at the massive battle outside. "Then why use them now?" "Because they're the only thing that scares the shadows." Suddenly, one of the ancient ships, the black, shifting one, moved forward. It bent space around it like a black hole, and then, without warning, it split into dozens of copies of itself, surrounding a group of incoming shadow creatures. Each copy struck with light that bent and shattered reality. The shadows screamed. The sound shook the entire station. The Zathari clutched their ears. One of them fell unconscious. Then it was over. The black ship reformed. It floated quietly back to its place like nothing had happened. But then a second rift tore open. This one was larger. Out of it came a shadow, the size of a moon. Its body was made of layers, each one moving separately, covered in red lines, like veins. Dozens of giant arms unfolded from it, each glowing with ancient energy. Its roar reached across space and into minds. Everyone felt it, not with ears, but deep inside. Kelna gasped. "This one is older," Stronger. Relic nodded slowly. It's a commander. Maybe more. The human officer tapped his device. Bring the Prophet online, he said. There was silence. Then, for the first time, the silver-winged ship moved. It turned slowly, like a giant eye opening after 1,000,000 years. A ring of light formed around it. A pulse of energy moved across the field. Then, everything stopped. The shadows froze in place. Even the moon-sized one paused. The Zathari looked around, confused. What happened? One of them asked. It's speaking, the attuned human said. His eyes were wide and shining. The Prophet is speaking to the shadows. Words? The ambassador asked. No, the attuned said. Something older than language. In space, strange symbols began forming in glowing light between the silent ones and the shadows. Spirals, lines, waves, shapes from no known race. The Zathari translator AI beeped, but failed. No match found, it said, but the attuned spoke again, slowly, as if translating what he felt. It says, you came once before, you ended light, but light still burns. The shadows responded not with words but with action. The moon-sized creature charged, and suddenly, the Prophet vanished. It didn't teleport. It didn't move fast. It simply wasn't there anymore. Then, without warning, the shadows began to fall apart. One by one, their bodies broke into pieces, not from attack, from something inside, like their minds had been shattered. Psychic warfare, Relic whispered. The Prophet broke their thoughts. But not all of them. The moon-sized shadow burned brighter than ever. It launched a spear of red energy straight at the Prophet's last position, and hit the station. The blast shook the human outpost. Alarms blared, lights flickered. Shields down to 60%, a technician shouted. We won't survive another hit. The human commander turned sharply. Get the Zathari to their ship. But we want to help, the ambassador started. You already have, the commander said. You believed. Guards rushed in to escort the delegation. As they were moved through the hall, Relic turned one last time toward the observation window. The Prophet had returned. It floated directly in front of the moon-sized shadow, glowing with soft silver light. Then it began to open. Its wings spread, wide, revealing something inside. A core. A star. Not a real one, but a memory of a star, pulsing with endless energy. It fired. The light covered everything. For a moment, the entire sky was white. And then, darkness again. The Zathari ship launched away from the station just as another rift opened far in the distance. Kelna watched from the viewport. How many more do you think are coming? Relic answered without turning. All of them. The Zathari ship flew at full speed, leaving the human outpost behind. But even from far away, they could still see the battle. Flashes of strange energy lit up space. Pieces of broken shadows drifted like smoke across the stars. And the silent ones, the ancient ships, kept fighting without pause. Relic stood, at the front viewport, silent. Kelna joined him. What do we tell the council? Relic took a breath. The truth, everything, that the humans aren't just survivors. They are the keepers of something much older than us all. And that the war we thought was legend has already started again. Inside the ship, the Zathari ambassador sent out an emergency message to their homeworld. It carried everything, scans, video, voice records. But they all knew something deeper had happened, something no data could truly explain. Behind them, the humans were preparing for the next wave. The human commander stood on the station's command deck, watching new rift readings appear on his screen. 5 more signatures, the officer reported, all larger than before. The commander's jaw clenched. Activate the remaining silent ones. Bring the old core online. But sir, the officer said, we haven't tested that system in years. It might. Doesn't matter. If it works, we hold. If it fails, we fall anyway. Far below the station, deep inside a secret hangar, something began to move. Not a ship, not a weapon, a vault. Its door cracked open, and a light brighter than the sun poured out. The attuned man stood nearby, eyes closed. He whispered something under his breath. The engineers listened closely. "What did you say?" He opened his eyes. "It's awake." Back on the Zathari ship, the crew watched one of the new rifts tear open, but this time, the creature that came through didn't rush forward. It stopped. It stared. It was not like the others. It had no body, just presence. And as it turned, the entire crew felt cold. Not physical cold, but something deeper, like their minds were sinking. The ship's AI suddenly glitched. I am not. It shut down. Kelna fell to the floor, gasping. Relek felt his hands tremble. It's doing something to our thoughts. They had felt fear before, but this was different. This was hopelessness. Then, suddenly, a voice broke through the silence. Human. Clear. This is the station, broadcasting psychic null field. Hold on. A pulse shot across space, invisible but powerful. The Zathari's minds cleared. Their AI came back online. Relek looked up in shock. They saved us. Again. The ambassador grabbed the comms. How are you resisting them? The human commander's voice was steady. We aren't. The silent ones are. In space, the ships glowed again, their shapes twisted into symbols. Old words burned into the stars. One of the ships, the one shaped like a tower, fired straight into the rift. Not energy, a song. The sound couldn't be heard with ears but felt deep inside. The shadow presence shook, flickered, and then screamed. Then it vanished. Gone. Relek stared in disbelief. They didn't kill it. They unmade it. The attuned man's voice came through the channel. They are not ships, he said. They are prisons and keys and sometimes weapons. Then what are the humans? Kelna asked. There was a pause. Then the human commander answered, We are the ones left behind to hold the door shut. For a moment the stars went quiet again, but then a new warning echoed through every ship and station. A rift was opening from inside the galaxy. Relek's eyes widened. That means they're already here. The final wave had not yet begun, but the enemy was no longer at the edge. They were inside, hidden, waiting, and the real war was about to begin. The rift opened in the middle of the galaxy, not at the edge, not in deep space, but in a peaceful system, close to trade routes and colonies. The stars bent, the planets screamed, and something impossible stepped through. It wasn't like the others. It didn't float or crawl. It walked, tall, black, and covered in red symbols. The creature stood on the surface of a gas giant, where no life could live. But this thing was beyond life. It looked around slowly, then raised one arm. The moon nearby shattered. On the human station, the alarms didn't even need to sound anymore. Everyone already knew. The final phase had begun. The human commander stood, in silence, watching the data appear. The creature didn't send signals, didn't declare war, it just started erasing. Colonies vanished, ships stopped replying, entire systems went dark. It's not attacking, said the attuned man. It's cleaning. The silent ones began to move again, drifting toward the center of the galaxy. But this time, they weren't enough. More shadows were appearing behind the walking creature. Smaller, faster, more aggressive, like hunters. The Zathari delegation had returned, this time with warships. Other species followed too. The Virex, the Talom, the Lanari. They had seen the truth. They had come to stand with the humans. But when they saw the thing standing on the dead moon, many faltered. What is that? Relek whispered. The attuned human, eyes closed, answered slowly. It is the one the silent ones failed to stop. Kelna felt her chest tighten. You mean, this has happened before? The human commander nodded. Yes, and we lost. But then, how are we still alive? The attuned spoke again quietly. Because someone made a deal. Long ago. A promise. Relic frowned. What kind of deal? No one answered. Outside, the oldest silent one moved forward. The prophet. Its wings opened again, brighter than ever before. It hovered in front of the walking creature. The rift behind it pulsed. Then, they spoke. Not in words, not in sounds, but across time itself. The stars flickered. People across 1,000 worlds saw visions, cities crumbling, oceans boiling, stars falling, and then a voice. It was human. We stood alone before. We won't stand alone again. Across the galaxy, hidden ancient systems came online. Old machines in forgotten places, buried cores in dead planets, hidden guardians. Each one activated, not weapons, not ships, but locks. One by one, they began to close. The walking shadow raised its arm to stop them, but the prophet struck first. A beam of pure memory hit the creature. It froze, not in pain, but in remembrance. It saw Earth, not the Earth of now, but long ago. Before the first war, before the humans made their choice, before they became the final line. The prophet glowed white, then cracked. Its light poured out. Relek, watching from a safe distance, whispered, "It's sacrificing itself." The shadow turned, its red symbols faded. The rift pulsed again, unstable. The other silent ones circled it. Together they sang, not music, not language, a command. Close. The rift screamed. The walking creature tried to step forward, but chains of light wrapped around it, chains from the silent ones, chains powered by all who believed humans, Zathari, Virex, Lanari, together, for the first time in countless ages. The rift closed. The creature vanished. The silent ones stopped moving. They had returned to sleep. The war was not over, but the door was shut. For now. On the station, the commander sat quietly. The attuned human whispered, "We held the line again." Relek stepped forward. "What happens now?" The commander looked at the stars. "Now we prepare. We tell the truth. We teach others. We build the future together." Kelna smiled softly. "Because next time," Relek finished for her, "we won't be the visitors. We'll be the fleet." And far away, in the darkness between galaxies, something watched. But it did not move. Not yet. It remembered Earth. It remembered the ones who refused to fall. And it waited. Because the war would come again.